Department of Defense Directive 1216. Contracted civilian acquired training for reserve components. Purpose of the reissue of the established policy prescribed by the pursuit of the guidance of the reference of the B and D with the contracted civilian acquired training for the reserve components armed forces of the policy intended to distribute all of the reserve components by agreement of the Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard Reserve of the deploying, conducting, evaluating, contracting, funding with the reporting, selecting, training by contracting with the source of the outside of the Department of Defense does not preclude with the practice of the obtaining with the proof of the military occupational training with an individual reserve component personnel of the civilian institution, either the direct expense of the service administered by the government assisted tuition for the purpose of the contracted civilian acquired training. It is to increase the number of mission qualified individuals of the reserve component, thereby improving the overall readiness for the appropriately justified contracted civilian acquired training is all alternative from formal military school training, but directly related to specific individualized mobilization skill requirements of the bill assignment. After the director applied with the Office of the Secretary of the Defense Military with the agreement of the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Coast Guard, of the Coast Guard Reserve Chairman, Joint Chief of the Staff of the Combat Command, with the Office of the Inspector General of the Department of Defense, the Defense Chief of the DoD Field Activity, other organization of the Department of Defense here, when they refer to with the DoD components. The term military service is used of the refer to the Army, Navy, the Air Force, and Marine Corps, with the Air Reserve components. Definition: civilian institution, accredited university, colleges, of the community technical school, junior college, and any other recognized training institution. Contracted civilian acquired training, all training obtained by the contractor source outside of the Department of Defense for use of the DoD components. Reserve components: Army National Guard, Army Reserve of the Naval Reserve of the Marine Corps Reserve of the Army National Guard, Air Force Reserve, and the Coast Guard Reserve policy. Contracting training is authorized when it is demonstrated that such training will fulfill the military requirements unless costly. Any of the following conditions exist: the subject matter is not represented with the military civil school system, whereas extent of the resident with the preclude with the reservists with the tendency to do with the civilian employment, the consideration low density specialty with the non-economical to export. Military service school quotas have been requested not available to satisfy the identifying training with the requirement, especially with the military service concern with the residential instruction of military service schools is more costly because travel costs and contracting. All DoD components shall comply with existing laws, regulations, contract with the non-DoD sources. Negative effects of the civilian contracted acquire training on the mobilization training base if it shall be considered before the contracts are awarded. Military service shall evaluate all of the approved programs with the contracting training the course of the devoted with the teaching of the skills needed for the members to obtain required proficiency level of the particular occupational specialty or to meet performance standards. Each course must provide with the individual class of the student performance evaluation to verify and attain with the training objectives. Civilian institution and industries used with the contracting training shall be filled with accredited, approved, and indicated in conclusion with the national, with the recognition of the accrediting agency, with the Association Public U.S. Secretary of the Education. Responsibility: Assistant Secretary of Defense of the Reserve Affairs shall, after the coordinated principal deputy and under Secretary of Defense of personal readiness, approve that provide guidance for all matters for the involved in the contractor of civilians who are training on the reserve components. Principal deputy under Secretary of Defense of personal readiness shall coordinate with the Assistant Secretary of Defense of Reserve Affairs on issues related with the contracting civilian acquired training for the reserve components. Secretary of the Military Department shall ensure adequate analysis, system requirement development, and training of the requirements of the research of the existing of the military civilian contracted acquired training programs before contracting the training. Ensuring the civilian contracted acquired training program is conducted and evaluated in accordance with the directive. Effective the directive is effective immediately. Paul's Wolfowitz, the Deputy Secretary of Defense. Enclosure 1, guidance. The following guidance is obtained with observed and contracting with the training obtained with the non-DoD sources. Contracting should be awarded administrated in accordance with the FARS, DFARS, reference B and C with the negotiation contract responsible for the contracting off of the DoD component. Funding shall be controlled of the obligation funded with the existing regulation implemented reference the total cost of the base on the intuition 11, special supply with the activity registration fees. Student accidental liability insurance shall provide for the civilian instructional institution to cover injuries incurred due to the negligence accidents occurring through no fault of the student with an amount of the benefit provision of the Corps of the regulatory guidance for the Department of Labor, for the Department of State, of the local government agencies. Records for the civilian contract required training shall be maintained, include cost per student per hour, name and institution, number of students trained per official year. Military service shall determine the format of these and other reporting requirements. And that was contracted civilian acquired training for reserve components, Department of Directive 1216.